Okay, you just saw the heathen have spoken, so hopefully you enjoyed it. I feel like we really covered feminism, but we're going to talk about it again. Have women achieve gender equality in the U.S.? This is going to be, I can't even tell you what an amazing conversation. And the people that we have on stage are two of my favorite people in the world. Okay, so what are we doing? Up first is Karen Garst, who holds a PhD from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Go Badgers. Thank you. She retired as executive director. No, not yet. Good, you should cheer. She's amazing. She retired as executive director of the Oregon State Bar in 2008 and has edited 2 anthologies about women and secularism titled Women Beyond Belief and Women v. Religion. And apart from all of her academic pursuits, Karen is a huge fan of trees, if you know what I mean. Welcome, Karen! All right, now for the sake of confusion, let's welcome another Karen to the stage. Karen Strawn is a Canadian spokesperson for men's rights. She's a producer and writer, I didn't want that to happen again, known for My Thoughts Regarding Chris Cantwell, Revenge of the Misogynerds, and The Red Pill. She also dabbles on the YouTubes, making videos critical of feminism. And it is important to note that Kevin is both her dog's name and her porn name. Welcome, Karen. It's time. Lastly, our moderator is the lovely and talented Melissa Chen, returning to the Pabst for the 2nd year in a row. Melissa studied computational biology at both MIT and Boston U and describes herself as a genome scientist by day and secular activist by night, though not always in that order. She is the editor-curator at the Global Secular Humanist Movement. Oh, man, that was a lot. And co-founder and CEO at Securing Change and managing director of the Ideas Without Borders not-for-profit. She has no free time, essentially. Melissa is also known for sneaking the word bukkake into every live event where she's speaking, and she already did so now, at least once. Welcome, Melissa.
Like where you're sitting. Nice to meet you. All right, so today we'll be talking about a very dirty F word. Yes, it's feminism. It's a word that, when uttered, causes some men to be uncomfortable, some women to completely deny association. But to others, it is worn very proudly as a label, sometimes accompanied by a pink pussy hat. So I just want to get a sense of the room here today. How many of you identify as a feminist? Just sort of clap, make some noise, whatever, just. All right. That's pretty good. I guess now you'll know who's not going to be making your sandwiches. Mostly these people. Okay, so our debate topic today is, have women achieved gender equality in the United States? 2 things to note. We're limiting the discussion to just the United States. So nobody can pull any trump cards like Saudi Arabia or like maybe, in Japan they do this bukkake stuff, so none of that. So number two, we're sticking to a very binary approach to gender just for the sake of discussion, so maybe trigger warning for some. So the definition of gender equality that both the panelists have agreed to is this. I'm going to read it, and that's the definition we're going to operate on. Gender equality. It is the state of being equal, especially in status, rights, responsibility, as well as accountability, responsibility, and obligations. Very clunky. So without further ado, let's begin. Given that we're dealing with 2 Karens here, this debate's going to be very difficult to follow. I'm going to MacGyver this with a simple fix. So, Ms. Strawn. But it's evil Karen.
It's gonna ruin my hair. Do you know how long I spent making it look like this?
Oh, yeah. You look good. Okay.
Okay?
So, Dr. Karen, no, Karen, this
Dr.
evil,
Karen.
evil Karen. Evil
Evil
Karen
Karen.
is going to go first, and she's going to state her case. And then we're going to just continue the conversation organically.
Okay, I would argue that women in the U.S. are equal in terms of rights, privileges, and status. Sometimes more than equal. In fact, women have a couple of rights that men do not have in the United States. They have the right to a whole bunch of things that women have, women are entitled to, but in order to get those, they have to sign up for selective service sometime between the ages of 18 and 26, or they lose the rights to those things altogether, right? So Pell Grants, certain types of federal employment, they will not be eligible for that if they fail to apply, register with selective service by the time they're 26. So essentially, women have all of those rights. Women also have the right in the U.S. to bodily integrity as minors. So nobody has a legal right to, not even their parents have a legal right to decide, I'm going to cut a healthy body part off of my baby girl. But that decision on the part of parents towards their sons in the United States and pretty much and everywhere else in the world, and I know we weren't going to bring in everywhere else in the world, but is perfectly legal. And in the U.S., it's actually, it's really, really common. So those are two things that I can point to that women actually have superior protections under the law as men. Now, my argument is that men and women are not equal, but it's not because women lack status or rights or protections under the law that are at least as good as those given to men. It is actually because they are held less accountable, they have fewer obligations to others, to society and to government, and because they are held less responsible for their actions, particularly when they are bad actors. So essentially, my argument is that if we want genuine gender equality, there are a series of moves that we have to make policy-wise that either grant men equivalent protections and equivalent, I guess, benefits under the law that women enjoy these days, or we need to find some sort of equity where it's sort of your rights are balanced by your responsibilities. So if we're going to put more responsibility on men, they should have more rights. If we're going to put less responsibility on women, they should have fewer rights. Those are the only two ways that I can see it working. And personally, I would really prefer the first one to the second one. But I don't think it's sustainable what we're doing now. So.
I just wanted to tell you, because I'm sure you're wondering why a retired executive is sitting up here. Why aren't I in Hawaii or having some fun? And prior to June 28th, 2014, I wouldn't have been here. Never heard of Mythicist Milwaukee. My husband and I had been atheists for decades and never joined any secular groups, couldn't have named a single one of them. And then the United States Supreme Court, in a 5-4 decision, in Burwell v. Hobby Lobby said, because of Hobby Lobby's religious views, they were not obligated to provide certain forms of birth control to its female employees. And because of Citizens United, you know, corporations are people. So therefore, corporations can have religious views. And I became incensed. I grew up in the 50s and 60s. Women had abortions with coat hangers. They died. In high school, one of my friends went away in the middle of a semester for a few days and came back. She was in New York. I went to Seattle with a band. Came into our room, bed had never been used, looked totally clean, went into the bathroom, and there were bloody rags all over. In college, okay, now it was a Lutheran college, so you can understand, we put in an ad for abortion in New York, and they impounded all the newspapers. So when Roe v. Wade came around, I was ecstatic. We're not going to do that. We're not going to lose lives anymore. And with this Hobby Lobby decision, I became very, very concerned. And I was incensed. I decided to write the book, Women Beyond Belief, Discovering Life Without Religion. I started out with friends. 22 of my friends wrote their personal story of living religion. I went and met with a lot of secular groups, did book tours, and wrote a second book, Women versus Religion, The Case Against Faith and for Freedom. Most of the authors in that are atheist women writers. There aren't many of us, but they're in there. And I have 2 Latinas who tell their particular story, 2 African Americans, a woman who's transgender, etc. And if you don't want to read the books, I have a YouTube channel that has a presentation I've done called From Goddess to God, Elimination of the Feminine Divine, which I think is crucial. And in the last 4 years, I probably read 150 books on religion and myth. I never go halfway on anything. I would like you to remember a phrase. Religion is one of the last cultural barriers to gender equality. We're not going to talk about that a lot today. I'm assuming most of you are atheists. I know Karen's an atheist. But that is what I write about. And when I started writing the book, I hired a marketing consultant, and he said, you have to have a blog. And I'm going like, what's a blog? And he suggested Godless Grandmother. And I said, really? Do we have to emphasize my age on this one? And he came up with Faithless Feminist. Hey, it rhymes. I love it. I'm a second-wave feminist. I don't really think this discussion is about feminism. I think it's about gender inequality. But religion is one of the main reasons that congressmen use to be against abortion. And if we don't have a right to abortion, we don't have bodily autonomy. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion. I'm very nervous about Brett Kavanaugh and his appointment. And I cannot believe that I've been a member of the National Abortion Rights Action League for 40 years. And I will probably be a member until I die. Thank you. Okay. No, she wants me to start.
But just to be clear, you agree that, so do you think women have achieved gender equality? Just want to get your position.
I do not believe they do.
Okay.
And Karen wanted me to start. And gender equality, now again, we're doing binary just to simplify everything, okay? This is gender equality. Let's say this is the woman, okay? This is the man. This is gender equality. That's not gender equality, and that's not gender equality. Therefore, the first thing I would say is that women should register for the Selective Service. Do you know that in the American Revolutionary War, Deborah Sampson Gannett, 5'9", go for it, fought in the war. She dressed up as a man, and in 1816 she got a pension. Now, at 18, I was the same height, 5'7", and I weighed 90 pounds. I would never have made it through basic training. I would never have been picked for combat. But my goodness, there were other things I could have done. Do you know during World War II, who were the coders? They were the women. Did they lose their jobs after World War II like Rosie the Riveter? No, they didn't. Why? Because men didn't know how to do it. It was a brand new field. So there's many ways to serve our country. I found out when I did my genealogy, I have an ancestor who fought in the Revolutionary War. Therefore, I was able to join the Daughters of the American Revolution. But I want it to be equal. I want to be seen as a patriot. I think women should register for the Selective Service. Now, this is why it's not going to happen. Ted Cruz. The idea that we should forcibly conscript young girls in combat, in my mind, makes little sense at all. He has 2 daughters. I could not in good conscience vote to draft our daughters into the military, sending them off to war and forcing them into combat. So I don't think it's going to happen. It should happen. And that is one of the reasons that men and women are not equal.
Okay.
I'd just like to add to that, traditionalism really does stand as a barrier. Feminism is one barrier, traditionalism is another barrier towards actual gender equality, just like you said. To Ted Cruz, I would say, oh, come off it. They don't line up, 6 beefy guys and 6 private Benjamins and go, okay, you, and you off into a foxhole, and you guys can do the administrative work and fly drones from a safe distance, right? You big beefy guys. If we drafted women, they would not end up on the front lines of combat. 99% of them would not end up there. They would be doing something different. They would be changing tires. They would be cooking French toast in barracks. They would be doing necessary work. When a nation goes to war, it's not just its soldiers, it's frontline soldiers that go to war. When Canada pulled its F-18s out of the Middle East, it wasn't just 14 planes that we pulled out, and it wasn't just 14 pilots that we pulled out. It was a support crew of something like 150 people that are on the ground, not flying the planes, making sure that they are flyable, making sure that they have all of the proper support behind them, the logistical support behind them. So those are jobs that women could do very, very easily. And the only argument to not draft women, if we're going to draft men, is how dare we inconvenience women. That's all it boils down to. So I agree with you. And Ted Cruz, if I ever see him, I'll tell him that right to his face, for sure.